Hi guys, and welcome to this tutorial. A few people have posted online asking where they can find an introduction to spellcrafting in this game. But since this game is still in early development, there isn't a whole lot of information. And any tutorial that you do put out at this stage will soon become obsolete. So for this tutorial I'm going to try and focus more on the programming concepts rather than the specific functions of the blocks. I'm going to also assume that you have no experience with programming. So without further ado, if I press escape and click new, it takes me to the options for creating a new spell. So I can choose between Blockly and JavaScript as my language. I'm going to use Blockly for this tutorial because JavaScript is a lot more advanced and doesn't have an API at the moment. Down here I can choose the element for my spell. What this actually only changes is the icon for the spell, because any spell can use any element regardless of what you choose here. So I'm going to choose Earth. The spell that we're going to make in this tutorial is going to be called Fling, and what it's going to do is it's going to fire the spell at an object, and when it collides with an object it's going to connect to that object and then drag it upwards into the sky in order to drop it from a height. So let's change the name here to Fling, and once I click next, it gives me the starting page for creating a new spell. Up here I can change the name again if I want to edit it. Over here I can change the mana required by the spell for each element. I can copy it, delete it, select it in my library. I can zoom in to make it easier to read or zoom out, and I can view the generated JavaScript for the spell. This can be quite useful if you want to learn JavaScript. On the left here is a list of all the blocks I can use for my spell, but we'll take a look at those just now. For now I'm going to delete these two blocks and equip the spell. So if I cast it, all it's done is it's created an orb facing in the direction that I was facing and not doing anything. That's because we haven't told it to do anything yet. So if we press escape again and go back to the spell creation page, at the moment there are only two blocks here, on create and on hit. These two blocks are special blocks because they are event blocks, and what this means is that these blocks will execute any code within them when a certain event occurs. So for example, on create will only execute the code within it when the orb is first created. So if I go down here to orb movement and I click and drag set orb speed, you can see here it highlights when it's within range to clip in, and if I let go, it clips in. Clicking the drop down box will allow me to choose the speed. I'm going to choose it to set to fast. So now when the orb is created, it's going to execute this onCreate event, which will in turn execute all the code within it, starting from the top and moving down. At the moment there's only one command that I've given, and that is to set the orb speed to fast. So now if I equip the spell and cast it, the orb is immediately sent flying when I cast it. And at the moment it'll go straight through any object it collides with because we haven't given it instructions to do elsewise. So let's fix that. If we look at this on hit event, this event will be called whenever an object collides with the orb. So in our case, when an object collides with the orb, we want the orb to stick to that object and then fly upwards to drag the object with it. So if I go here to Earth Powers and drag an elastic connection block and clip it in here, what this will do is it will create an elastic connection between the orb and the last hit ruled object, which will be the object that I'm currently that the orb collides with when it calls this event. An elastic connection is, you could basically think of it as tying an elastic band around the orb and an object. So it's sort of a stretchy connection. I can change the strength of the connection here. I'm going to set it to strong. And finally, I can I can't change. I can see the mana required by this block over here. In this case, it's going to be earth mana. You can see the symbols are the same. It's going to use 1 earth mana to create this connection, and it's going to take an additional 1 earth mana per second to maintain this connection. So I want this connection to last for, let's say, 3 seconds. So I'm going to put 4 earth mana up here. 1 earth mana to create the connection, and then 3 more earth mana per second to maintain it. Okay, so we also want the orb to fly upwards after we've attached to the object. So to do that, I'm going to go here, orb rotation, and drag set orb rotation and pop it in here. I can then set the rotation to up. This will immediately set the orb to face upwards, and it won't change the speed at all. Just keep in mind that the orb speed won't change at all because we haven't told it to throughout this whole process. Okay, so once more, when the orb collides with something, it's going to call this onHit event. This will then start at the top command. It will create an elastic connection between the orb and the object we've just collided with. It will then move on to the next command, which will set the orb rotation to face upwards, and then it'll still be moving at the same speed that we initially set it to, so it'll hopefully drag the object up into the sky with it. After 3 seconds, the mana will run out and the orb will disappear, leaving the object to fall from that height. So let's test it out. If we equip the spell, if I fire it at the ground, since the ground is static, or the ground is fixed, it can't actually connect to the ground, so it'll just move upwards. If I fire it at a rock, it's going to connect to the rock and drag the rock upwards. Yeah, that worked. It's gone quite high. Oh, the rock should come down just now. It goes quite high. Okay, so that's quite effective. Rocks are quite light, so only 1 cast is enough to drag them up. But for these enemies here, I might need to cast a few spells to make them go upwards. See, 1 is not enough, so let's cast a few. Yeah, those things are pretty tanky. Okay, so I might need a bit more height for it to be effective, but that's the spell, and that brings us to the end of the tutorial. Thank you for watching.